Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 68. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for joining us again this Sunday, Steelers Nation. And Dave, we got a weird show today. Everything's out of whack for me on this crazy short week, Saturday to Wednesday. Pittsburgh, of course, losing to the Baltimore Ravens 34-17 on Saturday. So we're apologizing in advance if this thing gets jumbled around. We got a Tomlin press conference on a Sunday, which I think is a first in terms of a post-game press conference and a weekly press conference that doesn't come immediately following a Steelers game. We got an injury report. We got the game. We got injuries. We got the Chiefs game a couple days away. It is 3 games in 11 days, and we are all feeling it, and the Steelers especially are feeling that right now.
Yeah, we're recording this starting about 30 minutes before Sunday Night Football gets underway. Was hoping we would have the full reels of the All-22 from the game against the Ravens out by now, but that didn't happen, so had to pick and choose through the Pro Game Pass version, and been kind of poking around through that today and watching a lot of ball. And I don't know where you want to start. I suppose I got to sing a few bars of gloom, despair, and agony on me, just to traditionally get us started with the Steelers and the loss there against the Ravens. But they kept it relatively close for a little bit there, but they got eventually ward. A lot of things happened that I was afraid would happen, and happened probably a little bit more to the magnitude that I thought they would happen. I obviously picked the Ravens to win. I think I said like a 7-point game on that, but no phase of the defense came to play in totality. And, I'm sure we're going to be talking about the couple of turnovers that Russell Wilson had that were obviously significant in this game as well, too. But I suppose we should get all the housekeeping all out of the way first.
Yeah, and just you called this one, and I think summed it up well on the Friday show, Dave, where you said it'd be a 7-point game, but Pittsburgh would score late. The game wouldn't be as close as the score indicated, essentially saying a pretty confident and comfortable Baltimore victory. There was no late score by Pittsburgh, but it was that kind of game where Baltimore really was in control for much of this thing. That's really back-to-back weeks since that's happened to Pittsburgh against the Eagles and then against the Ravens. But from the housekeeping side of things, injury standpoint, Pittsburgh, the whole inactive list, the 5-man inactive list, there were no elevations made pregame. They were all populated by actively injured players, including wide receiver George Pickens. He missed his 3rd straight game. Strong safety Deshaun Elliott, quarterback Justin Fields, cornerback Donte Jackson, and defensive lineman Larry Ogunjobi. And those were 2 guys we were thinking and maybe hoping had a chance to play in this one. Jackson and Ogunjobi, they were questionable to end the week, but neither dressed for this game. That ended up forcing Cory Trice Jr. into action and played 49 snaps defensively in this one once Joey Porter Jr. went down with a knee calf injury in this game. So Pittsburgh, more injuries upon the injuries that they had. And Porter going down, Ben Skowronek also not finishing the game with a hip injury. And so that's where things stand on that tight turnaround to try to get right for the Chiefs game.
Yeah, I really thought Larry Ogunjobi was going to make it back for this one. The one that was really kind of, playing mind games with myself about whether or not he would play when it came to guessing the inactives was Donte Jackson. And he didn't get downgraded on what day would that have been? Friday, whereas they did downgrade Deshaun Elliott. And I figured, okay, maybe that's a sign that both Larry Ogunjobi and Donte Jackson were going to play. Obviously, no elevation, so you had to have 5 inactive players for this. So I rolled the dice and predicted that Ogunjobi and Donte Jackson would both be active, and that Dean Lowry and Cory Trice Jr. would be inactive. Well, certainly didn't turn out that way. And as you said, all 5 guys on the inactive list were actively on the injury list, if you will. So not shocking overall. It felt like. And they probably sure could have used those two guys in Ogunjobi and Donte Jackson, but that wasn't the case. Cory Trice in a helmet, Dean Lowry in a helmet, and then on the back side of it there with Joey Porter Jr. and Ben Skowronek going down. Joey Porter tried to return to the game for a series, and looked to be moving okay, but obviously wasn't in good enough shape, and then left the game again, and then the team eventually ruled him out. Ben Skowronek returned too, and I don't know how many more plays he made it before being unable to finish the game, but Mike Tomlin didn't shed a lot of info on that during his Sunday press conference, other than to say that both Skowronek and Joey Porter are questionable for this game against the Chiefs, but in so many words said it's hard. It's a quick turnaround. It's going to be hard to get those guys in uniform. So we'll just have to see how it plays out with them. He left the proverbial light on for the other guys that missed the game that were injured. So with only walkthroughs probably this week, it's going to be hard to play the guessing game on several of those guys as well too. The most notable, obviously, being George Pickens, because boy, they sure could. It goes without saying that they could sure use him back on the field. Elliott too. If you're going to rank these guys, it'd be Pickens and Deshaun Elliott. From there, obviously Ogunjobi and Donte Jackson. So I don't even know which way to guess on that going forward, other than I've got the feeling that we won't see Joey Porter Jr. and we'll see about Skowronek.
Tomlin did say the 5 players who came into this game injured and did not dress on Saturday had a real chance to play. Again, how much you take stock into that given the short week, we'll see. And the team's estimated report today, obviously they did not hold any practice on Sunday, but because you have to have 3 injury reports, there was one that came out the day after the game. George Pickens was listed as limited, which would count as his first would-be participation since injuring his hamstring in terms of being called limited. He did do on the side work leading up to the Ravens game, but did not officially record a limited status on the weekly injury report. So we will wait and see. There's been some reports of optimism, some a little more pessimistic. It may end up being a game time decision where he works out pregame because, frankly, like you said, there is little practice time to really evaluate his health and readiness and recovery and all those kinds of things, because you got to just get guys ready and physically rested to go for Christmas against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and then on top of it, playoffs are coming, and the Steelers obviously are in. But in the same note, you want to try to shoot for a home game to open up the playoffs as well too. So, yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out.
The good news is the Steelers still lead the AFC North. The bad news is the question becomes for how much longer. They still are in control of their own destiny despite losing to the Ravens 34-17 Saturday and splitting the season series after beating Baltimore 18-16 in Week 11. If Pittsburgh wins out, they will win the AFC North. If there are losses involved, then things get a little complicated. If the Ravens lose out to the Texans on Christmas Day and the Browns in the finale, Pittsburgh will also capture the division. If it becomes a loss here and there, then there's kind of some complication we can talk about later in the show. But Dave, let's get to this game itself. 34-17 loss, dropping Pittsburgh to 10-5 on the season. Baltimore moving to 10-5 on the year with the victory. And yeah, just all the kind of the worst fears came to fruition in this one, Dave, in terms of Pittsburgh being that road team, short week, the injuries. But I don't even, certainly injuries are impacting this team. And I think structurally the way that the team has to adjust and the way the teams adjust to Pittsburgh without Pickens on offense and Elliott defense is a significant factor. But the core issues of this game aren't necessarily injury related. Pittsburgh's offense moved the ball much better with much more fluidity. Heck, they had more first downs and more total yards at halftime of this game than they did the entire week before against the Eagles. And defensively, the big issue was the run defense. And yes, Ogunjobi was out, and yes, Elliott's a plus run defender, but that's not the core reason why Baltimore and Derrick Henry ran for, just at will against Pittsburgh. So the issues do go deeper than just injuries, and those were on display against Baltimore.
Yeah, if you had played better defense. Look, one of the keys, and we obviously talked about this leading up to the game. It felt like and the Steelers always say, our number one goal is to stop the run, and then everything stems off of that when you're talking about this team defensively. On the offensive side, you always talk about don't turn the football over, deliver splash plays, get the run game going that way. But when you talk about defensively, first and foremost, one of my keys was look, we should note that Rashad Bateman went on and played in this game. He was questionable going into this, but yeah, I did kind of wonder how close to 100% he would be in this game. My thought was that if we were going to be talking about a Steelers win against the Ravens, or a Ravens win against the Steelers, that hopefully they made them beat them through the front through Lamar Jackson to the wide receivers, because I think when you looked at the way they were kind of banged up in the wide receiver group coming into this, talking about the Ravens, and then look, make your priority, try to stop stopping the run with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and then from there fanning out to they got a couple of great tight ends, right, in Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Can't let those guys get you. And in other words, make the Ravens move the ball and score the football through the air to their wide receivers. Well, as it turned out, the Ravens really did all three of those things. The Steelers did not stop the run. They did not control the tight ends, specifically inside the red zone. And then, Lamar Jackson was able to connect on some significant plays to his wide receivers in key moments. One of those, of course, being a touchdown to Bateman, and another one being a deep throw down the right side to Flowers. So they failed, and I mean, they basically failed all the way around defensively in this one. And all of it obviously stemmed off of the fact that right out of the chute, they had no answer for Derrick Henry. I think his first two carries totaled 20 yards. I think right before halftime, he had 74 or 75 yards on the ground. And then, he obviously came out and just continued to add on to that in the second half. And I was counting the plays, Alex.
I know you were.
Throughout this thing too, we talked about how many plays that defense was on the field for against the Eagles, and man, you just hated to watch the meter just slowly tick over in this thing with the long drives that the Ravens putting together, and you just got a sinking feeling the higher that number got, and with the success they were having, the Ravens were having on the ground, that this was going to, all come to a head. And, another thing we talked about too was, or that I did, that I said, well, I was going to make one of my keys, and I did, was the up tempo aspect. Now they didn't run as much up tempo maybe as I thought that they would, but their up tempo, when they did run it, caught the Steelers with their pants down, I think. And, we saw them get caught by that against the Eagles. They survived, obviously, one of those plays with T.J. Watt punching the football out of Jalen Hurts in that game. So really, the defense failed in really in all areas. And when they did get the football on the ground, by Alex Highsmith early in the game with the strip sack, they could not come up with that. The special teams was able to force get the football on the ground a couple of times. They didn't come up with any of those, and they only had the one takeaway in the game, which felt like it was going to give them a chance when it happened, with Minka getting his first interception in a long time, and then you turn around 2 plays later and you give it back to him on a pick six. So this was it's easy to look at this game and the 2 plays by Russell Wilson, the fumble deep down low, and then the pick six, obviously, and then form the whole game around those 2 plays. But this was make no mistake about it, this was a very complete Steelers loss, and I think that includes special teams as well too, because you did not get the footballs on the ground that you forced. You allowed, I think, a significant return at one point, and then Chris Boswell had a kickoff that went out of bounds at a very bad time as well too, and I think that enabled the Ravens to answer one of the Steelers' touchdowns with a touchdown. So a very complete loss. And with all that rambling, I'll let you speak a little bit now.
When you said you were counting, I feel like you have kind of the Dave Bryan Advent calendar where you count up each time that Derrick Henry busted a big run, you get a piece of candy. Not that you're celebrating that, but it just feels like that's your reward to try to suffer through watching Henry just run and rip run after run off the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Just sticking with
butterscotch candy unwrapped in my pocket, like
LeBron James.
Yeah, like that commercial.
It's a good commercial.
yeah. I was watching all that at the 10-yard the 10+ yard runs. What I think the
7 of them.
Well, eight, and Henry had 7
of
those, and I think those totaled, like, what did I write? 140 something rushing yards off those, like eight runs alone. So, I've said it before, and it's unfortunate that guy's a Raven, because I really like watching him run, like a really like a thoroughbred. And I think Tom Brady made a good point that, man, once he gets those feet moving, he's hard to bring down. And I think the Steelers were bad in gap control. I think some players were trying to do too much on a couple of these runs and out of gaps, and that played a part in it. Poor tackling reared its head again on that. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Ravens had 8 runs of 10 yards or longer, and Derrick Henry had 7 of them, 143 yards on those 8 runs.
And Justice Hill had that 25-yard run that he got that knocked out, it looked like, on that play. Ended up leaving the game. Hopefully he's okay. Just to try to pare it down, because you're right, nothing went right for Pittsburgh defensively in this game. But the Steelers' mission defensively is to do 3 things. A, stop the run. B, minimize the stars. Take away your best guys and make other people win. Be that a running back, a star receiver, whatever the case is. Even Pittsburgh did that to some degree against the Eagles, holding Saquon Barkley in check. Other guys made plays, can't stop them all. But Pittsburgh has a mission of, we're taking away at least one of your best guys, making plan B, plan C have to become the team's plan A. Pittsburgh did not do that in this game, obviously, against Derrick Henry. And then they take the football away. Pittsburgh's so good at that. You got one in this one, Minkah Fitzpatrick finally breaking that almost 2 full calendar year interception drought. But that was not enough. You had the missed opportunities you mentioned of the Alex Highsmith forced fumble, which stalled the drive, but you couldn't flip the field and take possession because of it. The punt return where the ball's right there, bounces away. Even the final muff punt, even though it would not have changed the outcome of the game, Baltimore recovered that as well. You lost a turnover battle in this game, which Pittsburgh has only done for the 4th time this season. So when you don't do the 3 kind of pillars of how Pittsburgh's defense wins, stop the run, minimize stars, take the football away, Pittsburgh's not going to win many games, not going to have defensive success in many games.
Right. And, you roll back to that first meeting against the Ravens. We talked quite a bit about, man, they got away from Derrick Henry. How do you have a Steelers Ravens games like that when you have a guy like Derrick Henry on your side, and you don't give him the amount of touches. And obviously we talk about Lamar Jackson wasn't as sharp, especially kind of running, that first half or so of that first meeting. Lamar was a lot sharper. I think in this one made some great throws. Obviously had the miscue on the throw to that Minkah got there, but when they were able to lean on their running game and get the chunks that they were able to get, and they found themselves in a lot of shorter yardage type situations, and it's hard to guess what they're going to do, and it just became the ultimate perfect storm against a defense that felt like it was worn down already at the start, and that's why I had the counter going on the play total there. So they couldn't get key stops. And look, when they did get down in the red zone, if you get a couple of stops down in there, you could change the complexion of the game. But they were actually down there 5 times in total. Scored 3 touchdowns down in there. I mean, you take one of those touchdowns away, and I'm not going to sit here and cherry pick this one away into a Steelers win. But I mean, if you get a stop on one of those, don't throw the pick six. Russell Wilson doesn't fumble. It's unfortunate. Like we always say, you can usually boil this thing down to 5 or 6 key plays in every game in the NFL. Pretty damn near much every week there. And the pick six was obviously a big one. The Russell Wilson fumble was a big one. The 2 blown coverages to the 2 tight ends down in the red zone, or another couple of them. And then it kind of fans out from there. But it's too easy just to say that the 2 Russell Wilson turnovers is what lost this game.
Sure, but they are difference makers and clear turning points of this game, and did no favors to Pittsburgh in this one. To just stick with the defense for a couple more thoughts. Yeah, so much attention and airtime and discussion has been focused on Pittsburgh's red zone offense, which of course has struggled throughout the year. Not enough has been paid to Pittsburgh's red zone defense, which was fantastic the first, and I got to pull out the exact data on this, hopefully for our next show, which I think will be Tuesday. But for the first 6 weeks or so, they were fantastic in the red zone defense, one of the best in football. Now they're one of the worst, and that continued against Baltimore. The Ravens 3 of 5. Pittsburgh did get the interception, but too many, drives that Baltimore had ended in touchdowns, not field goals. And I wrote about that maybe about a month ago that Pittsburgh's red zone defense was regressing. And if it wasn't for the red zone offense being more miserable throughout the entire season and just being a little flashier to write about, because it's an offensive discussion and a little more obvious, I should say, than defensive struggles, we'd be talking a lot more about Pittsburgh Steelers red zone defense, because they're allowing about, 70%, I think was the graphic that Fox showed over the last, 10 weeks or so. And that is a number that Pittsburgh cannot accept.
Well, I've got it up in front of me here. Let's go back, starting at the leaving off at the Giants game, where the Giants were 0 for 3 in the red zone conversion.
So post bye.
Post bye. The red, I still want to call them the Redskins. The Commanders, 3 for 3. Let's see that. I think that's 100%. 2 for 2 against the Ravens the first time. I believe that's 100%, is it not? So we're talking 5 for 5 in their first 2 games post bye. Cleveland, 3 for 4 in the snow versus Cleveland, 75% there. So I believe that puts us at 8 of 9, right? At that point.
Yes.
All right. 9. Then we go to the game against the Bengals, 4 of 5 there. So what's that put us at?
12 of 14.
All right. So you've gotten 2 stops so far. Cleveland, the second time, they did a little bit better, 1 of 3.
So that's 13 of 17.
All right. Then you go to the Eagles, 3 of 6.
So 16 of 23.
And then you go to the Ravens, 3 of 5.
And so that's going to be 19 of 28. Let's do the quick math. And what that is as a percentage, that is 68% to round up.
All right.
Red zone defense, which I don't know exactly where that stands league-wide, but I can tell you it is not in a good place.
And really the problem is the fact that they went 50% against the Eagles and 60% against the Ravens. Those percentages look better, but they were down there a total of 11 times, and they still came away with 6 total touchdowns in those 2 games. So,
right. And one of the Eagles' red zone possessions was them just ending the clock,
right?
That final drive there. So really take that one away. Obviously, they weren't even trying to score. That bumps it to 70%.
Right. So, you could be celebrating 50% if a team goes down 8 times, 9 times, it scores four touchdowns against you. So there sometimes percentages don't mean everything, but in this discussion, it does, as does the trip amount.
Right. It's bad volume and bad percentage, and it leads to Pittsburgh losing both of these games by 14 plus points, which has not happened since 2003. Dave, last time Pittsburgh lost back-to-back games by 14 points or more. That was against Cleveland and Tennessee the year before Big Ben was drafted, just to put that all in perspective. So yeah, again, we don't talk about that enough, and why that is. There's a variety of reasons. Communication has certainly been a sore spot. For whatever reason, Dave, on the road, Pittsburgh's defense really seems to struggle to communicate. I think back to the Colts game early in the season, these last two games against the Eagles and Ravens. And yeah, you can sit there and say, well, it's the road, it's a hostile environment. But when the defense is out there, when Pittsburgh's defense is out there, the crowd is quiet. They're quiet for the offense. They're not going to be loud and make it hard for those guys to listen. So it's easy for the defense to communicate because there's not really a crowd noise component. It's actually harder for Pittsburgh's defense to communicate when they're at Acrisure because the crowd is loud to be loud for the opposing offense. So, I don't know why these communication issues are popping up. And yes, yesterday, the injuries, you had 3/4 of your starting secondary out and no Elliott, Porter leaving early on, no Donte Jackson. You got young guys in there and Cory Trice and, Pierre's not played a ton of football this year for Pittsburgh, but some of the breakdowns weren't on those guys. The one touchdown Andrews was a miscommunication between Cam Sutton and Minkah Fitzpatrick, two veterans, two guys that, should know what they're doing. And Minkah tried to pass off the motion and Sutton didn't take it. They take the wrong guy. They both double Zay Flowers and Andrews is left wide open. So certainly there's an element of the injuries and the consequences of that, but it's not the whole reason. You have communication breakdowns between veteran players who have been here, should know what's going on.
Yep. You better get your Faith and Carry tweet out there or else people are going to think you're...
I had it on the ready and I looked away from the TV. So thank you very much thank you, Dave.
People are going to think the drones and the aliens done got you.
I'm out in New Jersey right now.
And I got my traditional Lord have mercy tweet out there before you. So I might have to delete mine and put it after yours, or else the balance of the world is going to be. I just had anxiety there.
We need something to go right this weekend, so I appreciate you.
Well, we're some messed up people, aren't we?
We're also a little loopy, I'm sure. Both of us are on a little sleep, and that's not going to change for the next couple of days.
Where were we about the miscommunication in a defense? I think, and you did a great job of breaking down the 3 touchdowns in a film room on Sunday morning on this, and the one to Andrews, it's apparent they were trying to switch that off and to miscommunicate. They just miscommunicated which one was going to go with Andrews there. On the one to Isaiah Likely that is wide open on. I mean, great play design. They got Minkah really in a questionable spot there. Queen's coming over. Initially, Queen looks like he wants to carry middle of the field.
Well, I thought he was maybe going to carry Likely. It's hard to tell. He gets picked. It certainly could be on Minkah. My first inclination was that was Queen's responsibility, but he gets caught up in the trash there. It's a really good scheme by Todd Monken to have that kind of switch release. I can't confidently say who to blame for that one. I do think it was a great call by Baltimore. Obviously, Minkah's got his eyes in the backfield. He was certainly fooled to some extent on this one. Yeah, because it's unbalanced. It's a pitch. And we talked about this. The Ravens love to use that in the low red zone. They really try to play into the run game threat. And they did that in week 11 on that Likely 41-yard touchdown. It was a similar play. It was a toss play that hit Likely kind of on a more of a leak, but that was a big gain against the Bengals earlier this year. Aguilar wide open off of fake quarterback power. So it's a real weapon down there in the red zone. Again, I can't say for sure, but Pittsburgh certainly out-schemed, outmatched.
All right. Well, both of them ended up in easy pitches and catches. I'll tell you that. You can access wherever blame and put it on whatever person you want to. But the fact of the matter, Mike Tomlin was quite aggravated about that. In so many words, he said disappointed in the 2 touchdowns to the 2 tight ends, right?
Right, he did. Yeah, the second one was clearly egregious in miscommunication there, and those things have to get cleaned up. And we talk about Pittsburgh winning the division, hopefully having a home game, and that could really play a factor. I have the stat I tweeted out earlier today, at home this year, Pittsburgh is allowing just 15.5 points per game. On the road, that number spikes to 22.9. And so really, it's been unfriendly confines of the opposition stadium when Pittsburgh is leaving Acrisure. They are a much, much worse defense, really, from a top unit at home to a pretty middling one on the road.
And then the other one that went to who was it? Bateman, I think, in this game over in the left corner of the end zone. A lot of people, and for good reason, clamoring for Cory Trice Jr. to get back in a helmet, and obviously he was due to Donte Jackson being missing this game with his injury and all. But I put this at the end of my prediction post when I was writing about Trice, that it's important to remember that Trice up until yesterday had only played 28 defensive snaps this season and 19 more on special teams. You kind of get lost in the fact of how many games he actually missed with his hamstring injury, and then the fact that he was inactive for the first 2 games that he was back, and then even in the limited amount of time that he was on the field, he was active early in the season, he didn't play a lot overall. And so you've got, and this is obviously a guy that missed his entire rookie season on top of it there. So you've still got a very, very green player overall. And, Joey Porter going down obviously forced him into action as well. But, the thing I think with that, and this is something that kind of we talked about back in James Pierre kind of early career when he had got to see some defensive snaps there. Knowing you're down in distance and situational football can play a big part in certain plays. And might this had been a touchdown anyway with the concept and the way the whole play in rush and all carried out? It's very possible there, but I think Tom Brady did a good job of the overhead of kind of breaking this down, and I think you did as well too. I think it was a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 situation there, and it's obviously down in the low red zone there, and they leaked the guy out to the side up underneath, and Trice took the cheese, if you will, and paid that too much mind underneath, afraid to give up such an easy completion that he did not gain enough depth in a too high kind of look, and when you do, you leave your safety up over the top, having to cover a lot of ground, and where that ball was placed, and it's just, if you don't have depth, something at least forcing a quarterback to think and read it a little bit better there. Perfect pass is going to kill you every time. So would that have been a touchdown, even if Cory Trice gains a little bit, holds his ground, maybe gains a little bit depth on that? Maybe, but by him biting up underneath, it really made the pitch and catch that much easier.
And just to talk through that play, I wouldn't say what Trice did was wrong in the sense of he did his job. He handled his responsibility. Pittsburgh's in inverted cover 2. He has the flag, took likely in the flat, but a savvier corner who's kind of beyond the just do your job mentality, which I understand that's where Trice is at because he is so young and green, as you said. That's what Mike Tomlin said today about facing Mahomes. Like, don't worry about what Mahomes is all about. Just do your job and just focus there. That's where players start. And the more experience you get, the more reps you get, the better you can try to really roll into and consider a situation, down distance, tendency, opposition, and kind of, be able to still do your job, but understand the context of what your job is. And so it's 3rd and 8, let them have the flat. If you get a little bit more depth, if you try to kind of not midpoint, but squeeze that 7 route behind you, the Ravens are running a smash concept, a curl to hold the corner and a corner route, a 7 route behind to stress the safety. If you can get some depth and squeeze that throw, might be able to make a play on the football if the ball is thrown, or force the flat and then drive and make the catch short of the stick. So that's just a learning moment there for a young cornerback. I thought it was a great ball from Lamar and a great catch by Bateman. Casey's put in a tough spot there. So, I mean, yeah, to be clear, like Trice did his job, but that's kind of the point. He did his job in not understanding the concept. But again, that goes back to Baltimore really having a great scheme and great play call. I'm sure they were expecting cover 2 there. You don't call that if you expect cover 3 in that situation. So Baltimore really had a good feel for what Pittsburgh was going to look like presentation wise, shell wise. They had the right call. They made the play. That was the story of the game.
And you could probably put one of the more experienced corners in the league out there in place of Trice, and that's why I want to be clear that might still be a touchdown either way. But sure. You do have to know down and distance and experience, and you hate to say forgivable touchdowns and use that as a term, but of the ones that they had through the air there, that's probably the most, well, it is the most forgivable of the three, and it's a learning experience there, and Lamar threw a great ball. I mean, that was way towards the outside of the end zone. Safety had no chance really to get over there. And by not squeezing a little bit more, Lamar didn't have to worry about, putting any arc on it and that kind of thing.
Any other thoughts here defensively? Like you said, tackling was poor. I think Josh Carney charted 16 total missed tackles in this one after 20 total against the Eagles, 17 of which came on defense. I don't know exactly how many were strictly on defense in this Ravens game, probably about 13 or 14. So that continues to be an issue. Pittsburgh not winning the line of scrimmage, not getting off of blocks, maybe not being gap sound. Obviously, they were selling out to stop the run. And when you can't stop the run, and that really opened up play action on first down, that really expanded the playbook for Baltimore, where those 15-yard digs were working. You hit an early one to Zay Flowers, had success later on, whatever that play was, or Minka got called for face mask. I think was another situation, one of those dig routes off a play pass. And so once Baltimore got the run game going, play action became a big-time weapon for them, and Pittsburgh had to sell to stop the run. The linebackers were biting because they had to. Things open up behind, and it was just, Pittsburgh was on their heels the entire time.
Yeah, there were obviously some nice plays by the defense throughout this thing, but not significant, and not enough of them. Obviously, overall, I thought Alex Highsmith, for the most part, played a very good game overall. What Peyton Wilson was asked to do, although I think he missed a couple of tackles that play into that. Thought his performance was okay. Outside of that, I mean, it's hard to come up. Landon Roberts had a nice stop on third and short where he knifed through and made a tackle. Minka came up and had a nice play on Lamar, and he also ripped one out that looked like it was going to be a completion and had the interception, but obviously he was not without fault in throughout this game as well too, on top of it. So yeah, just the all 22, once we get the reels in and we can see both angles of the end zone and all like that. I mean, at least I know through several of the big plays that Henry had and all like that, looked like some out of gap type situation. I think Mike Tomlin even kind of referred to that today, where people got to trust people especially when you're down a couple of guys on defense. And another easy thing here too is to say, well, look at the injuries this team has. Obviously going into this game, not having Donte Jackson and Larry Ogunjobi, losing Joey Porter Jr. Relatively kind of early in this thing as well too. Look, injuries around the league happen, man, and that's why usually these teams that are left standing later on in the season that end up winning it all do a better job of navigating through injuries. And just look at the Detroit Lions as a firm example of just how lopsided they have been in the injury department. Sure, having Deshaun Elliott for this game would have made a little bit of difference, I think. But the other 10 guys out there still got to do their part as well too. And for the most part, on a play-by-play basis for this thing for the Steelers, they did not get it done. And when Derrick Henry comes out to shoot, running downhill like he was running, like I said, had first 2 carries, 20 yards, and by
he knew it was going to be a long day.
Yeah,
they really set the tone early. Baltimore did.
Right. You had to hope that they came out and just said, okay, we know, almost a carbon copy of what happened in that last game where they tried to give it to Derrick Henry early. It got ripped out, and they said, okay, let's try to throw the ball. And Lamar's not hot early with his accuracy, and kind of build the perfect storm off that. But when they came out and they saw their run success early, and man, there were just some wide open gaps, that Henry was running through. And once that guy gets a head of steam going downhill, I mean, it's going to, even when you tackle him, he's going to go forward for another 2 yards. And that happened quite a bit in this one on top of it. And the sad thing about it is some of the first contact with him wasn't until past the line of scrimmage in this one either. You see guys like, Dean Lowry getting pushed around up front.
There was one on a cutback where Benton just tripped off the line and Hayward got pushed down. I don't know if he stepped on somebody's foot or just got bumped. Maybe it might have been a double team that chipped him. But I mean, Henry's got, you could have run through that, and you get Derrick Henry running through that whole, train's coming, man.
Right. And yeah, just also if you can't stop the run with a team like that, especially one you're trying to do so many things in there too, because your edge guys are trying to pay mind and to make sure the zone read and Lamar Jackson. So you're kind of having to surf that, unless you're playing a scrape, type situation there, and you're afraid to scrape because Derrick Henry coming right up the middle on you. You've got so many things to think about when it comes to stopping their running game that if you don't do it perfectly, and then they get into the second or in short or third and short situations, it opens up the whole playbook. Todd Monken called a hell of a game for them. I thought, the Steelers were really outcoached, especially when it came to the Ravens offensive side of football. I thought Lamar Jackson played a really good game, smart game overall. And then once again, their line and Derrick Henry was running downhill most of this game.
I do think missing Elliott changes the structure of Pittsburgh's defense. It forces Minkah into the box more. You are harmed more in that sense, even though Minka's a really good box player who can stop and support the run, similar to Elliott. I do think there's that consequence. But overall, your front was healthy. You're missing Ogunjobi, but you have all your edge guys back. Your inside linebackers have been healthy all season long. Your D-line is generally intact, Ogunjobi aside. So the injuries can't be an excuse for why the run defense was poor. If anything, the secondary helped prevent some bigger runs by Henry. I thought Casey had a couple of clutch open field tackles early on, and Minka's open field tackling ability is obviously pretty strong. And so that kind of saved some of those runs from being even longer by Henry, especially early in that game. I did think Pittsburgh, and again, I got to watch all 22. We're waiting on that. I thought they maybe paid a little too much attention to Lamar in the run game. I know that's always a concern, but I thought in week 11, Pittsburgh allowed Lamar a little more latitude to run the ball. He had 4 carries, 46 yards, a couple of zone read runs that were for good gains, but it came at a mission of stopping Derrick Henry. And I thought it just felt like Pittsburgh's edge guys were a little too focused on Lamar. I'm willing in this case to sacrifice a bit of Lamar gains to stop Henry, especially knowing how well Henry was running early on in this game. So I got to check the tape on that. I know zone read, there's different rules, different ways to play it, but it just felt like Pittsburgh was maybe paying a little too much attention to Lamar. Stop Henry first, and once you do that, okay, we'll talk about Lamar, but Henry had to be the primary man to slow down as he was in the first game, and Pittsburgh did that. They didn't do that this time around.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in that first game, weren't we talking about Alex Highsmith more crashing down a little bit quicker to defend Derrick Henry, and that's when Lamar was keeping him and going to his left around. It seems like we were talking. Whereas this time it felt like Alex Highsmith was surfing it more to the outside.
Right. He was allowing the give to Henry, and I'd rather let Lamar keep it. I mean, it's a tough choice either way. You don't want either guy to have the football, but if I'm picking one, given Henry's early success and the hits that he delivers and the way he wears down your defense, the way they feed off those Henry power runs, my first mission has to be stopping Derrick Henry. I'll deal with the rest as the game goes on. But Pittsburgh had the right approach in that first game. I don't think it was quite where it should have been for this one. It's not the sole reason. I think either way, Henry was going to have a big day. I think Henry was going to run over this front the way they were getting out muscle, not getting off of blocks, not being gap sound, etc. But yeah, I just felt like just watching it live, a little too much attention to Lamar on some of those zone reads.
Yeah, and the more zone reads that Lamar has during the game, too, there's more chances you get to hit him.
Yeah, they didn't even do that. They didn't do the
get the ball out potentially,
Yeah. Pittsburgh did try a bunch of different things in this one. They tried to run a bunch of different fronts. They had a 4-down front, a 4-4 package, a 2-5 with 3 inside backers. You guys saw Mark Robinson on the field early in this one. He had an early tackle. They were using 3 inside backer sets to try to give some different run stopping personnel. They couldn't do some of the big nickel and 3 safety stuff they're accustomed to. They didn't play dime in this game because of being shorthanded in the secondary. So they were trying to throw different stuff at the wall, but really none of it worked.
Yeah, agreed.
And then just one other quick note, you kind of mentioned that long completion out of the end zone that Lamar had to Zay Flowers for 49 yards against Beanie Bishop. Pittsburgh's been rotating in Cam Sutton, including in this Ravens game. He's been primarily playing in some third down, more obvious pass situations. Maybe that's a moment where you'd rather have a Cam Sutton in than a rookie like Beanie Bishop. And I don't know. Well, I mean, I know what Diontae Casey was doing on that play. I think he was kind of anticipating Flowers was going to break out of the tackle. He was trying to be last line of defense, but Casey's just kind of watching the play 10 yards back, and it's Peyton Wilson who runs from hit the Ravens 10-yard line. Wilson was blitzing on that play to hawk Flowers down as Bishop's trying to hold on to Flowers' leg to slow him down, and Patrick Queen is loafing on that play. Wilson passes him by. Stuff like that, man. It kind of makes you mad.
And that was a good spot on you at like 3:00 in the morning on
Yeah.
just the TV tape. Cause even then the pro Game Pass version of all 22 was not out, and you had picked up how far you said, I'm pretty sure the all 22 is going to show Peyton Wilson running quite a way. Well, I finally got around to pulling that up, and you're right. I mean, from the Ravens' own 10 all the way. I mean, he blows by Patrick Queen like Patrick Queen standing still. If there was a hustle award, there's not many bright spots that they're going to be picking out in this film room when it comes to this defense this week. But I'm willing to bet Mike Tomlin has that play pulled up, and Peyton Wilson gets an attaboy in that situation.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that Wilson made the tackle at the same time Casey did, as Casey was the deep safety on that play. I'm not trying to crush Casey. I thought he had a couple nice stops in this one. Again, I think he's trying to think, okay, Flowers is going to break this tackle. I don't want to charge in and then miss the tackle and it's a touchdown. But to bring it back to Wilson more positively, Wilson has been as advertised as a rookie as I can remember. Like that, he's the exact same dude the tape at NC State showed. Like even the hustle, because he made those plays in college. There was one
Georgia Tech, wasn't it?
I think that Notre Dame, I think there was one where he's running downfield like 40, 50 yards to make a tackle, way downfield. So it's the athleticism, the run and chase, the work ethic, the hustle, even some of the deficiencies in the run game. Some of the negativity has popped up into the NFL level as well. But I mean, he has been just, him and Frazier are like two guys that are just, I mean, they could be on their college uniforms and the tape would look the same, because it has been just exactly what Pittsburgh was getting when they drafted them.
Yeah, and remember the first game against Baltimore, ripping out, damn near still hard to think about how he actually got that arm going up into the pocket of the catch and ripping that ball out, and that interception covering Hill in that game. He is a bright spot, at least at this point, and already a smart player. The more he learns the nuances of the game, gets a little bit stronger, gets a little bit more apt at getting off blocks. Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue with him coming out. I in my notes, I believe, was the ability to get off some blocks and the way he tackles. He likes to tackle high, and he's a big boy on top of it, though. He's like 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, he's a high cut.
And so those were really the only negatives, and the what did I say about the first thing about him? But the boy can run, and he, as you stated, a lot of the stuff from the college tape is transferring over. Now, he was asked to rush the passer a lot more in college than he obviously going to be asked to do as a pro, but he has ability to go point A, point B downfield. And it's sad that we're talking about one of the bright spots being him going 50 yards downfield to make a tackle, but it was worth noting because it does stick out on tape.
It does. Time, speed, and play speed matching up perfectly for him. Some other bright spots. Happy that Minka got his interception. I know he talked to reporters and downplayed it because it comes in a loss, but happy that Trout is over. That was a big play and a good return by Minka, too. 25 yards. Not only the interception, but then giving your offense really good field position. Pittsburgh's done a great job on interception return yardage this year. They were top 4 as of 2-3 weeks ago. They're probably still about top 5. So that's been a hated component, but an impressive component. All the same. Unfortunately, it was given right back by Russell Wilson. We'll talk about that in a second. But Minka off the schneid, and as you said, Highsmith being a quality left tackle, and Ronnie Stanley. Highsmith has had success this year, and in fairness, he's had some tasty matchups. Beating Chris Hubbard against the Giants is kind of shooting fish in a barrel. But Stanley's had a good year. He's back healthy, and Highsmith really had his number early and often in this game. So kudos to Highsmith for that.
Yeah, and I thought a couple of those snaps that Henry got loose on, Highsmith did a good job at least doing his part in setting the edge, at least making stuff, go inside instead of outside of them and those kind of things there. There are not a lot of bright spots to talk about this defense other than that.
Yeah, my notes are pretty short on defensive.
Poor Beanie got caught on likely on another one. Had to cover him. That was a huge mismatch.
Yeah, some tough spots there for a guy like Beanie Bishop out there in the slot. All right, Dave, let's go over to the offense. And again, there was more fluidity. I thought Arthur Smith called a decent game. I wouldn't call it a great game, but 10 times better than what the game plan was against the Eagles. I thought Russell Wilson made some plays, and I can understand. I know Chris Hoke spoke about it, and the first thing came to my mind was your Dave saying when he talked about if you take away the fumble and the interception, right, Wilson played a great game. It's one of those, well, besides everything else, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Like that was kind of one of those moments where Wilson had some really positive plays. I think he felt the weight of this game of like, I got to be the guy that wins this game to clinch the North, to sweep Baltimore. We're hurt. We're on a short week. The deck is stacked against us. I got to be Russ. I got to be the dude. I don't say that negatively. I just think that was his mindset in this one. Probably the conversations that him and Tomlin had this week. Maybe Hard Knocks will reveal some of that of like, this is a game where the guys and the A players have to be A players to make up for everything working against Pittsburgh. And it results in the costly fumble and the interceptions. Let's talk about the 2 turnovers, Dave. The scramble by Wilson. It's a great play at first. Wilson tries to cut back to score. Darius Washington, probably the smallest guy on the field, a really good hit, knocks the ball out. Baltimore recovers. Wilson postgame said, I was just going for it. I was trying to be aggressive, make a play. What was your takeaway from that moment?
All right. You want the results biased one?
I mean, whatever you want to throw at me.
There's obviously so many different ways you can look at that one instance there. If he cuts back, breaks the tackle, or even gets hit and goes down and doesn't fumble the football, we're saying, man, what a great scramble on that. Set him up down in the low red zone there. Wills Wilson. We're saying if he doesn't fumble the football. You can look at this from the end zone view and say, why don't you just keep running the direction that you're running? And if you get tackled, you get tackled. You could look at it as, okay, I can maybe see what he's thinking. Pruitt's coming across the field. Pruitt's going to at least get a body on him by the time I get there, and I can get in the end zone that way. You could think, just take a profit and slide. You already got X amount of yards. You're going to be first and whatever down inside the 5 and be done with it that way. What hat are you wearing when you're breaking this down? Because it's very easy to put on the results bias hat and say, slide, go right, do this, The easy answer is just hold on to the damn football, but it was quite a hit, that he took, and game changing play by who did that? Washington hit him on that. It's just an unfortunate ending to a heads up rare Russell Wilson scamper like that.
You're right. There's certainly bias. If it's a cutback and Wilson makes Washington miss and scores, it's a highlight reel play, turn back the clock, classic Russ. He's in his prime. But I don't know. I mean, you've done the hard part. You made a great play. I don't know if he was worried about. Do you think because Fields got hurt on that slide last week that Wilson wanted to not take a shot similar? And because when you slide, you expose yourself.
Right.
I mean, you really have no way to protect yourself. As some quarterback coaches and some coaches are now advocating don't slide, dive forward to kind of shield yourself better. There's a good conversation about that. I wonder if the Fields injury, which came on a slide against the Eagles, played a role in Wilson's thought process. But man, you're 36. Like I think he was feeling it. He had that great scramble play to Skowronek earlier in the game, running around doing some vintage Russ stuff. But don't don't hit on 20. Just stay. Just don't try to make the great play even better than what it is. And so there is certainly bias and results, lens that I'm wearing when I say that, but I don't know. You just wish that guy would have gone down and gone down to the 4 and you're in a great spot to take the lead.
Well, once again, even if the play, if it all turned out the way it turned out, other than him fumbling the football, we're talking about, man, what a great scramble, what great guts, what moxie, all like that. So the fumble, the actual losing the football, the discussion starts at that point forward. Now, I thought about this a little bit, just for a half a second after you said it there with what Russ said in his press conference. Russ is very careful anyway. He's done this enough times now that he knows how to conduct press conferences after losses, after wins, after poor play on his part. I am going to go with what he actually said, and that is that I was going for it. And I think his adrenaline was built up. I think he knew that was going to be a big potential for a big play, and it was at that situation. I think that he thought that he was going to be able to get in the end zone there. He saw Pruitt coming across, and he liked his chances. And I don't think it was more along the lines of him thinking in the moment that Justin Fields got clocked sliding. I think it was Russell Wilson, exactly what Russell Wilson told us. I was going for it.
Fair. That's all fair. But I remember whenever they first signed Russ, and one comment I made where he was still mobile, and I called him functionally mobile, but like he would still write some checks his legs couldn't cash. And that's kind of where that play is. Maybe a decade ago, he's able to avoid that hit better and break the tackle. You're not going to do that at 36. And even if he hadn't fumbled, he still took a heck of a shot to the hip there from Washington. Like I don't want Wilson late in the season to be taking those kind of body blows. So even if it had been a fumble, you kind of cringe when that hit happens because that he's probably got a big bruise on that today from that hit from Washington. So there's not a lot of good outcomes there, no matter what happens. So you're right, there is results bias certainly baked in. It's unavoidable, inescapable. But there's certainly every reason to say the next time that you're in that situation, Russ, don't try to play the hero ball. You've done the hard part. Go down, protect the football. Don't do things that could risk a fumble.
John Elway helicopter hit, kind of goes through your head. And
I guess that's the thought. Like, okay, to try to take the bias out of it, if Russ is in that situation again, should he do the same thing again, or should he do something different?
Look, the 14-year-old fan, 12-year-old fan side of me immediately after it happened said, just slide.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Okay. But then, you like I said, different people, depending on what hat they're going to have on, are going to look at this very, very different. The end thing here is he fumbled the football, and it was a hugely pivot play in the game, and especially, and as Mike Tomlin pointed out, they did not play complementary football. It's one thing if you fumble it, you lose the situation, but your defense gets off the field, and within 5 or 6 plays, you get the ball back and you get another crack at it. But then that turnover caused a 14-point swing, or the result, I would say cause. It was the result of it was they went down and got a touchdown and you didn't get a touchdown, right? So
sure.
That also plays into subconsciously your bias of wanting to be even that more negative on on what Russ did, right? It can't help it.
Sure. But I'm saying for the next time, Russ, if you're Tom Mark, the quarterback's coach, and you're coaching Russ for the next time you're in that situation, because there are sometimes, okay, yeah, because there are some situations where if that happens, to make up a name, just Najee, you're going to tell Najee, do the same thing again. We're going to protect the ball better, but we're not going to do things differently the next time we're in that situation with Russ. Next time you're in that situation, find a way to go down.
Right, because we need you. We can't have you taking hits like that.
Right. Yeah, that alone, even if putting the fumble aside, Russ cannot absorb those kind of shots this late in the season, especially when Fields is injured right now. And had Russ gotten hurt, you're finishing that game with Kyle Allen instead.
And once again, what are we talking about if he takes that same hit, gets tackled, and gets up just fine? They go in and score a touchdown 1-2 plays later, you know?
Sure. Yeah, we're sweeping that under the rug. It's gritty Russ and great play Russ. But that's why I look towards, okay, how do you coach that for the future? Do you say go slide, get down, or do the same thing? And if the conclusion is slide and go down, then that's kind of your answer about how we should have handled that in the first place.
I think after looking at the all 22 and all end zone view of it and all, I thought, man, just keep running the angle that you were running. Try to run away from Washington as much as you can. If he gets you at the goal line, he gets you. At least the bad thing about it is the way the velocity that Washington is coming at him. He's probably going to try to clip his legs too, and then are you going to be out with a knee injury down at the one or going into the end zone? You know what I'm saying? But it was a little questionable, I think, his decision to almost run back into the defender.
Yeah, I think he was hoping that Washington's momentum would carry him forward. He'd be able to kind of sidestep it rather than go through him. He'd go around and then Wilson could just dive over the goal line and score that way. I think that was the idea. And if he was 25 again, maybe that would have happened. But when you're 36, you don't change direction quite as crisply as you used to. So that's kind of my thought there. And I also say this, being as someone who watched Ben growing up and loved every time he scrambled and did too much on a play. So there's a lot of confliction on this one. There is some of that bias, but again, Rusher 36, lived to fight another day. He did the hard part. Got a good scramble, good first down. No one to hold him, no one to fool him.
All right, big play, and good on our Darius Washington to force that fumble.
Mm-hmm. And the interception off the boot, which obviously was the real critical play, just a couple of snaps after the Minkah Fitzpatrick interception. I'd written about in my scouting report pregame about how well the Ravens have defended play action. And once the all-22 drops, then I really want to put together a cut-up of some of the deep shots that's been taken away and the boot action, especially that Pittsburgh has not had success with, not in Week 11 and not in this game. It's really been blanketed. They run that boot play a million times. They dress it up in different ways. And Russ is pressured and tries to get it to Pruitt in the flat. Pruitt is really blanketed by Humphrey. It's a bad pass. It's too far inside. Humphrey snags it, and it's a pick six the other way. So, I thought Baltimore really had a good game plan to stop some of the staple play pass concepts Pittsburgh runs.
That was almost a disaster waiting to happen in that situation, especially with the personnel on the other end being Pruitt. And we talked, I think, even coming out of the Eagles game, how it looked like they were sniffing that boot action out quite easily, and you had kind of prepped for that as well too, saying that how good the Ravens are, kind of sniffing that stuff out. Even a perfect pass in that situation. A perfect pass would almost have to probably require a phenomenal catch by Pruitt in that situation. So it almost felt like a lose-lose, especially with the pressure and the way Russell Wilson's having to deliver that thing. It felt like a losing proposition all the way around, and it goes back to Russ probably pressing and trying to make a play and feeling the gravity of the situation, yada, yada. Coming off of the turnover that they had just gotten in just a very inopportune time. It definitely went right to, it was not an accurate throw behind Pruitt and made it even that much more easier for Humphrey there. So it's just one of those live and learn situations where maybe they'll take this as a lesson that, maybe they need to build more stuff off of stuff that looks like that to try to catch teams instead of running the actual boot boot on the leak out there.
Yeah, potentially. They've done a little bit of that with the wide leak to Connor Hayward early this season. Yeah, just one of those when you're pressured, you make mistakes, you panic. And Wilson was pressured. It's designed where that play side, boot side defenders, it's a kind of block and release by Pruitt. And so once he releases into the flat, that edge guy's unblocked. The ball's supposed to come out quick. It's a low high read. You throw in the flat. Your second read's the crosser coming backside. Your third read's going to be on that front side, a vertical corner route or a comeback or something like that. But the ball's supposed to come out pretty quick there. Baltimore read it. And even if it is a perfect pass by Wilson, you're talking maybe a 2-yard gain by Michael Pruitt on that one against Humphrey, their top corner, cover corner. So
there's not a high reward factor.
Yeah, there's very, very little at all. So it's just when you're pressured, whether it's Wilson, any quarterback, you make mistakes, and that's what happened there. But I thought Baltimore really had good answers consistently in both games for the play action game, for the boot game. Pittsburgh tried to mix in more of the screen game. They had a running back screen to Najee that they hit for 17 yards in the first matchup. Najee dropped it this time. I don't know exactly how many yards it would have gained. Probably not 17 this time around. So Pittsburgh was trying to sub some stuff in, but kind of like the Eagles game, you couldn't get a lot of easy wins in the pass game. Things were still more painful. The boot game wasn't working. The screen game wasn't working. You did have some more success down the field, but the last 2 weeks, Pittsburgh's not really gotten some of the easy plays to get you into third and short or get you going on 1st and 10. That's really been difficult for this offense.
All right, let me take that Men in Black thing out and erase your mind of those two turnovers by Russell Wilson. All right, so
what turnovers?
All right, how did Russell Wilson play other than that, Mr. Kozora?
Yeah, pretty
well. How did you enjoy Russell Wilson's play other than that, Mr. Kozora?
Yeah, speaking of plays, yeah, I thought not again. You can't erase those, but for the moment, putting those aside, he did play well. I thought he ran the offense well. There were some effective throws downfield. His offense was moving the ball with more fluidity. The run game was having more success overall. The one throw to Jefferson on that 4 verts to the 1 was a great ball by Wilson. There were some extended plays, that one to Skowronek where Wilson really felt like a vintage Russ moment there. So yeah, I thought Wilson, especially without Pickens, against a tough and improving Ravens defense and a really good secondary that I don't think has gotten the credit they should, especially for how much they've progressed recently. I did think Russ played well, but of course, putting those turnovers back in, it obviously dings the performance, and those are crucial plays. Pittsburgh, you already had the deck stacked against you. You have back-breaking turnovers. You really have no chance.
If all I showed you was the next gen passing stats chart from this game, you'd probably be pleased, other than asking what happened on the red dot.
Yeah. What's that red one? Dave?
Yeah. Creative in the touchdown pass to Michael Pruitt. Pruitt made a great snag on that. And then your other touchdown pass, former Falcons day, Cordell Patterson, old man strength on what did Tom Brady call that? A shave route?
Yeah, I never heard that term before. Just call it a wheel, but I'm sure each vocabulary is different.
Wasn't the best. Neither one were probably the best balls, but they were balls where probably only your guy is going to catch. He did complete them. Cordell Patterson did a great job. I almost lost that thing on the ground too. I didn't realize that until I went back through the TV tape on that. Ball almost came out while he was on the ground there. So those throws were good. The thing is that you don't see on the passing chart is it does not show you the white dots for the throwaways, and he had like 5 or 6 of those where he just had to just throw them away, and you obviously don't want to have to see your quarterback throw away so many passes that go nowhere. The spike obviously not in there. I guess it's worth talking about the 4th down deep shot to Calvin Austin.
It is. So Tomlin, in a similar situation as last week, it's 4th and 6 opposed to the 4th and 7 last week, but similar yardage. It's a 1-score game this time, though, not a 2-score game. little bit earlier. It's the first play of the fourth quarter as opposed to a couple minutes in. Tomlin decides to go for it, ends up with that deep vertical shot to Calvin Austin. Kyle Hamilton knifes in, knocks the football away. What's your thoughts on deciding to go for it and then the actual design of the play call itself?
Once again, your results depends on the results bias, but I think you got a lot of factors involved in there. A, I'm fine with them going forward in that situation. B, you got a smallish guy in Calvin Austin. We've seen them try to run that particular play, several times over the last couple of years with him, with Calvin Austin, trying to split the middle and all like that. You just with Hamilton back there and the size of the guy and the amount of air and the amount of air yards involved in it, it's a very, unless you just catch somebody napping, it feels very low percentage just as a whole. And to me, the best thing that could have happened there was Kyle Hamilton intercepting it.
Mm-hmm. It's like that Josh Allen punt against the Patriots.
Right. Become like an arm punt in that situation there. I mean, you kind of drifted back into Hamilton's side, and it wasn't even like, even if I kind of envision what would that look like if George Pickens is running that same thing where the pass was, would it even have been a ball that even George Pickens would have had a better than 50-50 shot at? And I say no, because of where the ball placement was and all like that. So not a fan of the actual play call in and of itself.
For me, I know hindsight's 2020, but I mentioned this in our group chat right before the decision was made. I would have punted there. I get why Tomlin did it. I think he maybe regretted his decision to not go forward against the Eagles and didn't want to make the same mistake twice. And so I think that maybe was in the back of his mind. He had the whole third to fourth quarter to think about the decision and the play call that you wanted. And that probably influenced Tomlin's decision to go for it. I don't mind the throw by Wilson because there really wasn't anything else there. My issue, I'm not going to kill Tomlin for going for it. I get it. I wouldn't have done it, but I get it. But the call, there's really nothing at the sticks. Again, I got to go back and see on the all-22. There was a good end zone view of that play. You got a crosser by Mike Williams. You got a couple of vertical seam runners from Austin and Jefferson down the sideline. But can't you design something to get 6 on 4th and 6 or 8 on 4th and 6? Do we have to take the shot right there? I get the intent. Maybe we're hoping the Ravens are playing the sticks, and Tomlin said they got the right look they wanted. It was a split high coverage with Austin down the seam. But is that the time where you're going to go for broke on that one? Give me something that works to the sticks is what I would have wanted.
And I think the whole mindset too, because at the time you're down, it was 24-17 at the time. Mm-hmm. You had just switched sides of the field at a quarter change, and that gave you a little extra, maybe the worst thing is they had a little extra time to think about it, right?
Yeah, well, they'd come out on 4th down, end of the third quarter. They really didn't try to do anything. They didn't hard count or anything, but yeah, agreed. There was extra time for them to mull it over.
And obviously it didn't work. And then you turn the ball over on downs and they start driving again. But thankfully you get the interception. So you got to get out of jail free card after all that. But it doesn't take away from the actual decision.
In terms of the play call itself, did you like the route concept? Do you like more of those vertical concepts on a 4th and 6?
Not if George Pickens ain't in the game.
Fair. Yeah. So just find something to give me 6 yards on 4th and 6. Don't, you can have vertical routes built into that to help stretch a defense. I'm not against that. And Williams was on the crosser. They hit that to Austin earlier in the game. Maybe that was what they were hoping to get. It didn't open up. You moved to your secondary read. There's different progressions and, based on what the coverage gives you. But I don't know. I think you could have called something more manageable to get you 6 in some of these more vertical bender and crosser concepts to really kind of creates at best a 50-50 situation.
And look, I think Calvin Austin was a bright spot for the Steelers offensively in this game, so I'm not taking anything away from here. But what's the best thing that could potentially really maybe come other than them maybe blowing the coverage or something, or Calvin Austin just smoking, actually past, getting on top in the situation and clear of that situation. You're probably talking about a 50-50 ball in that situation. And he's you got Kyle Hamilton's like what, 6 foot 4?
6'4". Yeah, he's a big
guy. What's the best thing that could probably come out of that situation? And what I'm getting at here is, maybe a more opportune time to let Mike Williams run that,
Yeah, I mean, I think Austin's played big. I think if it's
he has, and I'm not trying to smite him here because I think he played a hell of a game.
Yeah. I think if it's anybody but Pickens, you don't throw that vertical ball in that situation unless it is just wide open. I think you got to design something where it's a more manageable type of play for quarterback and receiver to complete that, and that's kind of my gripe from that play.
Calvin Austin, back to him. He made a couple of really nice plays. That catch down the sideline was absolutely fantastic. Keeping the feet in and all like that. And then the route that he ran on that 14 or 16 yarder across the middle there was a fantastic route. And quite honestly, that was probably the single best route the Steelers ran in the game, and probably the single best pass that Russell Wilson threw in this game.
Yeah, I agree. Austin is playing out of his mind, and he's making plays I just simply didn't think he was capable to make. I knew he was fast, knew he could make those plays vertically, but some of those tough contested catches, making plays outside his frame, adjusting to the ball in the air. I can't tell you the number of times, mostly really in training camp, because he hasn't gotten a lot of action. Obviously missed his rookie season and didn't play a ton last year. So many balls that were just, they were just barely outside his frame. He couldn't extend and make the play on to go off his hands. He got jostled. He couldn't finish the play. That has really changed since that Browns game in the snow, where he really sort of started to come alive. And so he's making plays that I just didn't think was in his kind of arsenal. And that's been really impressive to see. He's growing. I know he's regarded as a really hard worker, good dude overall. I'm super happy for him. But yeah, this is not just because Pickens is out. He's making plays that he just simply has not made previously in the NFL.
He's become more than a slot fade guy.
Yeah, and more than just a speedster. I mean, he has become, I don't know if he's ever going to be known for fantastic hands and making those great tough catches over the middle, but he's certainly making a lot more plays of that variety or something closer to it than he has ever before, at least since he's been drafted.
And that one over the middle there, great release, stacked the who was in coverage on that one? It was Brandon Stevens, I think, in that one. Actually quickly stacked Stevens and then kind of stair-stepped out and away from him and got some nice separation, and Russ put it right on his hands.
Yeah, so kudos to him. Austin continues to have success, and I think he can be a number 3 type going forward if you can, for next year, and bring back Pickens, or obviously bring back Pickens under contract, and have Austin and draft somebody that's a top 3 I can work with. So that's kind of where that group is at.
All right. What about the rest of the offense there? They never, they tried to obviously run the football. They had a little bit of success with toss and some inside zone stuff. Warren, had a couple of nice runs there. Najee, both of the running backs ended up averaging, getting, 90 yards combined for the 2 running backs on 21 carries. Obviously not enough volume there overall. And, the way the game went, get away from them in the second half obviously takes away from the running game. They just weren't in any type of situation where they were able to have any flow to kind of lean on the running game more, but the running game was better than it was against the Eagles. still obviously not where you want it to be. I still think that on 1st and 10 situations, though, they were much better in this game as far as yardage went, but they just never built up consistency overall, specifically in the running game. So, you only Warren, I mean, there was a point during the game where I was like, man, just feed Warren, because every time you're getting the football in his hands, it seemed like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards and all like that. Now, the Steelers only had two explosive plays, I think, in this game overall. And you knew that if they're going to win this game, they're going to have more explosives than that. And I'm sitting around watching, all these games today, and you see all these, not only explosive runs, but double explosive runs. And, you obviously saw what Henry was able to do against the Steelers. You know what the longest run the Steelers have this season is? You probably know it.
I think it was the 34, 35 yarder by Najee earlier in the season, was it not?
Yeah, it was that one where it looked like he's kind of stymied against the Raiders there over on the left-hand side, and comes out of that kind of the group of guys. It went, 36 for a touchdown in there.
Right. The left side. Yeah, right after McCollum had come in. Right. Yeah, good call.
I mean, that's their longest run of the season, Alex.
Is that the shortest long run by an NFL team?
Probably
not. You'd be surprised. Some of these teams are also really bad at running the football, but it's certainly going to be closer to the bottom. I'll check it. And this is entering. I don't know what today's results were across the league. Still got some games going on. Let's see. The Cowboys' longest run is 27 yards. Am I looking at the right stat here? Why is there a 64-yard run listed for Pittsburgh? Am I missing something here, Dave?
64-yard run for the Steelers. I don't remember seeing that.
Let's check. Maybe we're both.
I'm looking at I'm looking at the official NFL. Let's see here.
Yeah, ESPN is showing that. Wait, this can't be right. What am I? Am I in the wrong column? Sometimes ESPN gets kind of weird with their stuff, because they got something wrong here.
I have 36 long touchdown. Najee Harris is the team's longest run.
Yeah, ESPN's being super glitchy because they have the Eagles down for a 101-yard run this year, which I'm pretty sure is not possible. Anyway, point is you're not getting some of those. And frankly, what's the longest run Pittsburgh has had by a running back? Post bye, it's probably you got the Fields 30-yard run against Cleveland in that first game. I mean, what's the longest run by a running back since then, though? It's probably 20 yards.
Let's see. I'm looking at regular season here for the Steelers. Najee's longest 36 and a touchdown. Jaylen Warren's longest is 18. Justin Fields had a 30-yarder.
That was the Cleveland game.
And Russell Wilson had a 19-yarder.
Yeah, so you're not getting those explosive plays that were there early in this, because Najee was ripping those off early in the year. He had more like 25-yard plus runs than he had his entire career, and those have really gone away lately. So I think in this game against Baltimore, there was efficiency. There just wasn't the volume. They weren't converting on third down. They were 4-10, I think, on third down in this game, and so that really didn't allow them to extend drives and really get the run game going more consistently in this one, and that was a big factor. What was your take? What do you make of Jaylen Warren playing a season-high percentage of snaps, 67%, Najee Harris just 17 total snaps, 28%, might be the lowest of his career in which he finished out a game. Any impressions to that? Is that a one-off thing? Is that something more to that?
Well, I mean, look at the 2-game total now here on the last 2 games overall. Najee Harris, I tweeted this out. For starters, he needs 67 more yards of rushing in the last 2 games for another 1,000-yard season. However, he's only carried 15 carries in the last 2 games combined and played a total of 31 snaps over those 2 contests. So Mike Tomlin said it's game flow, dedication to getting all eligible bodies involved, yada, yada. I wonder what the balance was at halftime of snaps. I don't have it back from Tom yet.
Yeah, I don't either. I think situational football did play a role when you're playing from behind. They were in a 2-minute drill. That's where Warren comes in. He's your pass down back. And so there is some of that. But certainly you felt like Warren was having success. And I think there was an extent that Pittsburgh trying to ride the hot hand. Warren came out to start the second half. And so that kind of speaks to that, I think, a little bit.
In the last two games specifically, it has felt like Warren has had the hotter hand.
I mean, I don't think in the Eagles game anybody had a hot hand. I think
right.
There was no success by anybody.
Well, there was a couple of runs that that seemed like they were 20 in my head, even though they weren't.
Yeah, they were 2 in the box score. So,
right.
But yeah, Warren being healthy and he's looked like his old self, and there's certainly value in that. So we'll watch going forward. I think this is a little bit more of a one-off than what it'll be going forward in terms of that dramatic of a split. Again, the game circumstance, when you play from behind, Warren's going to play more. If you're playing from ahead, Harris is going to play more. But yeah, you certainly feel like Warren's bringing that juice and energy, and you want to lean on that now that he's healthy, which he really wasn't for the first 8 to 10 weeks of the season.
I thought a big component of this game I thought they did a phenomenal job of going down and getting a field goal right before the half ended. I thought that was, if there was optimism to build off of after everything that had happened up until that point in the game, because that closed it to a touchdown game, 17-10. Once again, you're thinking, all right, they're able to drag them into the mud into the second half, and
I like your tweets about that. Come into the mud, the temperature's fine. Baltimore.
Yeah, and I also said, make sure when you go into defense, you have plenty of Capri Suns and orange slices for that defense, so they can. But the thing is you're going, you're coming off of optimism of a nice field goal drive to end the half. You get the ball first in the second half. And I tweeted this, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that tweeted this out as well. Man, open up the second half, keep the offense on the field, drive down 13 plays, get a touchdown, keep the defense on the field, and we got a whole new ball game here in this situation. That's what my analyst / fan hope was in that situation. So what happens? You come out opening kickoff of the second half. Jaylen Warren left tackle for no gain. Russell Wilson pass incomplete short right to Van Jefferson, sets up 3rd and 10. Russell Wilson pass short right, Van Jefferson short of the sticks for 6 yards. You punt the football away. The single worst thing at that particular time of the game, and it's an obvious, is to go 3 and out. When your defense needs rest, you have momentum coming out of the locker room on the road, can kind of change the tone of everything, and then you go 3 and out in the situation there.
Agreed, but the defense gets a stop, and then Pittsburgh goes downfield, and they tied the game at 17. So they had clawed their way back. It's tied at 17, and so yeah, the start of the second half didn't go how Pittsburgh hoped it would, and a chance to double dip, but you got the stop, you tied the game. They tied it at 17. I don't usually get too confident or really have any feelings about how a game's going to go. I'm just kind of watching the game in real time. But they tied at 17. I thought they're going to win this thing in classic Steelers fashion. They're going to fight their way back. They're going to win this game late. They're always good in the fourth quarter. They're making the plays. And you touched on it. One of those hidden plays was that Boswell kick out of bounds. Gave the Ravens the ball at the 40 after Pittsburgh tied it at 17. They go downfield. They score. Baltimore responded much better than Pittsburgh in this game. Steelers score, they tied the game at 17. Baltimore touchdown. Ensuing possession is the 4th down incompletion by Russ. Baltimore throws a pick after that big Henry run. Baltimore responds. They pick 6. Russell Wilson. They answered the bell more in this game than Pittsburgh. And typically it's the Steelers answering the call. That's how they win games. Tides were turned in this one.
And that's why Mike Tomlin says we didn't play good complementary football on top of everything else here. Right. They didn't, whereas the Ravens obviously did. It felt like you're just fighting every possession. You're like, what's that meme oh, shit, here we go again, the GTA kind of situation there. So, yeah, I mean, I get your point about, here's what eventually happened here, but you also sent you had to send your defense out there right away coming out of the locker room, and then the meter on the, you know what I'm saying? You can't perceive after the fact. We need an opening drive here. Can't go 3 and out because there's the whole momentum factor I felt as well too. And then I think there was the whole component of give the damn defense extra rest coming out of the locker room. They ended up eventually going 3 and out and punting, but you sit your defense back out there for how many more plays,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to, but to me, that wasn't as much as I was hoping for right there with you to come out of halftime and score. That's why I thought, yeah, for real, at the
I'm
end of the
not
first
saying
half,
it was
Pittsburgh,
a dagger, but I'm just saying it could have reshaped maybe some things had you gone 13 plays, 10 plays or whatever,
sure.
and tied it up then.
Sure. No, I completely understand that, but Pittsburgh at least had chances to win and make plays after that. Had Pittsburgh gone 3 and out to start the second half, and they punt, and Baltimore marches downfield and they go up, and the game's really controlled by Baltimore the rest of the way there. Point taken. But I think in this one, Pittsburgh still had chances, and they just did not make those plays.
I mean, looking back, it was what, 17-17 with 1:53 left in the third quarter, right?
Well, that's when Baltimore scored to go
Right.
up 24-17. Yeah, after Pittsburgh tied it at 17, there was about 5 minutes left in the third quarter. The Boz will kick out of bounds. Baltimore gets the ball at 40, 1st and 10, 16 yards to Mark Andrews. Baltimore's already, boom, in Tucker range in Pittsburgh territory. Then, of course, they punched it in for the touchdown on that miscommunication that left Andrews wide open for, and you made a good point, his first career touchdown catch against the Steelers, their all-time franchise leader in touchdown catches, his first one against Pittsburgh.
Where else we need to talk about here?
Just Lamar having a good game against Pittsburgh for the first time in his career, essentially. His quarterback rating in his previous 5 starts were in the 60s. I think he had one game at 80, and this one 115.4, 3 touchdowns. He had 5 total passing touchdowns in the previous 4 starts. I mean, he looked like how Lamar usually looks against the other 30 NFL teams in the NFL, and Pittsburgh has had his number typically. Injuries can certainly play a factor there in the secondary, but Lamar looked like MVP caliber Lamar. Maybe not quite that good, but obviously much, much better than he typically has against Pittsburgh.
I mean, if you take that interception away for him, because they're already down driving in that situation too, it felt like the Steelers weren't going to be able to do anything to keep them out of the end zone on that one.
Yeah, for sure. And then just by the way, quick stat of the weird, Russell Wilson's pick 6 by Humphrey, only the second Steeler to throw a pick 6 in this Baltimore-Pittsburgh rivalry. The first was Big Ben in his NFL debut way back in 2004, pick 6 at the end of a loss against the Ravens by Chris McAllister. So that's only Russ to Humphrey and Ben to McAllister back in, what was that, week number 2, I think it was, or 2 or 3 in 2004. And man, Humphrey's such a good player too. If you had to give me a short list of like 3 Ravens I could steal off of Baltimore, he might not even make it to number 3. I might go Lamar, and Humphrey might be number 2 on that list, to be honest with you. And we'll probably hear about it on this podcast this week. But he talked about how important these wins were, and he's right about that. Losing 8 of the last 9, they felt that. They won. Tip my hat to them. He did definitely taunt Calvin Austin. I know post game, he said, I was just trying to give the ball to my good friend David Jabo, who's like next to him, and Humphrey's looking directly backwards at Calvin Austin. But I can't be too crabby about that because they made the play.
Offensively, what else is there left to talk about? Should they have used the tight ends more in this game, or at least tried to?
I want to see the all 22. I mean, they moved the ball through the air. It's not like there was a lack of passing offense. I know Freiermuth only had 3 catches, and Darnell's been pretty quiet. Maybe get him more involved in the boot game component of it. I imagine. I don't know exactly what Humphrey was doing in some of those money downs in that first matchup. He was on Pickens on almost every third down situation. Maybe he was on Freiermuth more in this game. I kind of have to see how they were taking him away in this one. But again, I mean, Russ is 22 or 33 for 220 something, 2 touchdowns. As you said, 4 or 5 throwaways. I mean, they did have success through the air. There was some level of fluidity there. So I'm not crying too much foul on a lack of Pat Freiermuth usage.
Look, you got to keep the score down in this game on a defensive side of football, especially without George Pickens. And you can't look past the 2 turnovers by Russell Wilson. But if you were to blank those out, I thought it was a pretty decent game by Russell Wilson.
Yeah, again, it's
once again, you don't want to see him have to throw away five 5 passes, like that. And then I think another incompletion was a spike, right? And we talked about the deep throw to Calvin Austin on 4th down. And early in the game, coming out of the locker room, we talked about that incompletion over to the side to Van Jefferson. Trying to notate where the other incompletion went. I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden here, but
there was a drop screen by Najee.
Yeah, there you go. I think that might have been the missing one there. And even that one wasn't going to get but a yard or two.
Yeah, probably wasn't going to have a ton of success, but I think Pittsburgh was trying to replicate some of the success they had with the screen game early. But yeah, I just think defensively they were poor. Baltimore controlled this game. They were more physical. They set the tone. They really carried this thing through, like the Eagles game, and that's not how Pittsburgh's supposed to win.
If they don't turn the ball over twice, I mean, it's hard to.
I mean, yeah, they're in that game. I mean, for sure, and that's what Pittsburgh's been great at, is taking care of the football. That's what Russ has done a good job of too. But he's got, against Baltimore in the first game, he threw that bad pick in the end zone, and in this one he's got 2 crucial turnovers that result in really 21-point swings. Right, he had the 14-point swing from the missed opportunity for Pittsburgh to score that turns into that 96-yard touchdown drive. Then, of course, the pick 6, which is 7 points right there. That's 21 points and a 17-point loss.
All right, where's your concern level on this defense right now? Even getting back Elliott, Ogunjobi, Jackson, and Porter at some point.
I mean, I think they could still be a really good defense. I'm concerned about the struggles on the road, of why this defense really seems to fall apart on the road and is much more stout at home. Again, given the crowd noise, it's really more of an impact if you're a defense on the road than if you are in your own home venue. I still have some faith and confidence. I'm not giving up on them, but there's certainly some things they got to get back to basics on, and there's just not much time to do that on a short schedule where your practices are walkthroughs. I know Tomlin talked about there are different ways to improve tackling, but it's not just putting the pads on. And some of that is true, but you just need some time to reset and go through some reps and some drills and refocus, and really don't have that kind of time right now. Mahomes is coming to town here in less than 3 days.
What was the exact phrase he used of how they're going to attack tackling this week?
Back to the lab.
Well, that, and then he used a specific phrase today that I got a kick out of. Let me see if I can find it.
I just know he used that last night. Yeah. And I asked him today the same question, and that was his first response.
He said team will work on their approach to tackling.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that?
I mean, there's leverage, there's tape. I mean, you can do some, just some mental reps in terms of tackling. It's not like even if you had a long week, you have limitations on pads and tackling. I don't even know how many even practices you get late in the season in terms of how many times you can go full pad. You're not even tackling probably in those sessions anyway. So I get it. You'd either have to be out there on the field and go through some actual simulation, but you really don't have that choice right now.
Right. Look, we said going into the season that first half of the schedule, they're going to take care of business and get into the second half, and then probably rely a lot on their defense to, which at the time coming out into the season, you thought, yeah, this is a great, really good front seven, and felt like they could play Russian coverage, and obviously you had the injuries that you've had, and look, TJ Watt wasn't completely TJ Watt yesterday. They did a good job on him regardless. One of the things I wrote in my 5 keys was havoc plays, whether call them what you will, strip sacks, tackles for losses, block punts, whatever. It just felt like you're going to have a lot of havoc in this game. Well, they created a little havoc. They just didn't come away with the football, but just once in there. Alex Highsmith stripping it out. That's somewhat of a havoc play. You got nice tackle for loss by Landon Roberts. Special teams stripped out. Ball didn't bounce in their way. Those kind of things that you rely on this defense that leads, at least went into the weekend, I think, leading the league in takeaways there. And a guy like Lamar, they weren't able to key key on him in down and distances, being behind the chain so much. So I think that kind of led into not getting the sacks. And then obviously Derrick Henry running downhill and the missed tackles adding up. And you got a recipe for what you got.
What are your thoughts on the O-line? Didn't talk about them much. The All-22 is a better guide, which we're waiting on. My one thought is that, and this is not solely or strictly on the O-line, but Pittsburgh has gotten sacked so much in the first half of games this year. 16 of Russ's 24 sacks this season have come in the first half. I don't know if that's not being prepared or just needing to see something or just making better adjustments or just the randomness of playing with leads and passing less in the second half. But there's been a big problem protecting Russ in the first half that has not been there in the second half.
Well, one of those sacks was going to be an attempted cross the field screen, right? That he had to eat, right?
Yes, that was one of them, right? But even still, okay, at 15 right. At 24. I mean, it's a high rate in the first half. I think protection overall was kind of poor throughout.
Yeah.
Russ escapes and stuff, but I thought especially early on, Russ was still escaping stuff. That one to Skowronek, a good example where Pittsburgh's not been clean picking stuff up.
That was a great job by Skowronek by looping around and coming back to the football on that as well too. So need to highlight that he did a really, really good job of working back to his quarterback in an extended play situation there. Not having the all 22 reels yet. It felt clunky in the pass protection. It felt a little bit better in the run, but once again, they didn't get an opportunity to lean on the run game much in succession.
I will say there was one missed blitz pickup by Jalen Warren. It's actually on the opening possession of that third quarter you referenced earlier, a 3rd and 10 where Humphrey came off the edge and Warren saw it late. He was able to shove Humphrey a little bit to knock him off a path and let Russ give him time to throw the ball to Jefferson short of the sticks. But there's Calvin Austin open over the middle where, Wilson's able to hang in the pocket and go through his progressions. That should be a completion and a first down. Who knows where things go from there. So little things like that go beyond the O-line. Not all pressures and sacks are obviously on the front five.
Okay.
Special teams quickly on that. Mentioned the Boswell kick out of bounds. Did have the 51-yard field goal at the end of the half. That was certainly huge. He's got 39 for the season. He's 5 away from the record. Not sure if he's going to get it now, Dave. I've been rooting for him silently. Well, not silently. I've been open about wanting him to get the record. They're not scoring touchdowns, and they're not kicking field goals. So I'm not getting either of our wishes right now. Waitman, I thought, punted the ball well overall. The coverage unit did allow that big run back on that punt return that was fumbled, so that was good, but the return itself was not acceptable. So the coverage unit still needing to tighten things up a bit.
And they did strip the ball out once, but didn't jump on it. And
yeah, Medikevich was there. I think the ball just took a bad hop, and he kind of was like slipping. Tough from the angle to kind of see how close he was, but yeah, just missed.
That's why I say, I mean, this was certainly a 3-phase team loss.
Yes, no question about that. Any other final thoughts here, Dave, watching the game from the TV tape?
Nah, based on what we have now, I think we beat this thing up pretty good.
Anything else from the week? Anything else from the Tomlin press conference? Should mention, did I mention AFC North path? Yeah, I mentioned at the top of the show. Pittsburgh wins out. They capture the division. Easier said than done. The Chiefs had their injury report today. Mahomes is going to be good. They could be without some key guys. Chris Jones has a calf injury in this game. It's apparently grade 1 strain, according to Jake Glazer. It's a pretty minor injury, but given how valuable, important Jones is on this short week, he may not end up playing in this game, which of course would be huge news in a positive way for the Steelers.
All right, Mike Tomlin was asked about Diontae Johnson.
Yes, Diontae Johnson waived by the Ravens Friday afternoon because it's the weekend. He will process through waivers on Monday by 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see if anyone claims him. A lot of reporting that, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter believing it's likely that Johnson will get claimed. Mentioned the Chargers, the Chiefs, and even the Steelers. Rappaport's talked about that as a team to watch. And so any chance of a reunion with Diontae, Dave?
Read off Mike Tomlin's exact response.
Give me a second.
Get your tinfoil hat out.
I mean, it was pretty much what I expected in terms of the response, but I'll let you put the tinfoil hat on and tell me what you thought of it. He says, quote, "I have nothing to add about somebody that's not on our football team right now, end quote. Is right now? Is that where you're going with this, Dave?
You can hyperdive. The quick answer is I don't know. My gut response is, here's the thing. What's the health of Ben Skowronek right now? Do you even know? And this is a short week. It'd be one thing. It's a little bit longer week. My gut throughout this thing is, man, they wanted him out of that locker room, and they got rid of him. And for him to come back now with a new offensive coordinator and all, I mean, and they already traded for Mike Williams, and we see how, I mean, he only played how many snaps did he play?
18.
Yeah. I mean, you're still going to run a lot of, if you brought him in, I mean, and you didn't want him pissed off in the locker room again, you're going to have to give him snaps. And the only way you're going to get him on the field is be a second wide receiver in those two wide receiver groupings. And how quickly are you going to get a guy like that up in speed? Are you concerned about the locker room? Who do you, I mean, I guess the who do you cut's not as big a deal. I mean, it could probably be a guy like Scotty Miller, right? Because it's not like Scotty Miller gives you much in the way of special teams play. Same with, at least Diontae Johnson can get back and return punts in a pinch if you needed him to.
Or if Skowronek goes on IR if the injury is serious. Right. I just have no idea what his status is.
Right. My gut tells me that it's not going to happen. Now, we've seen guys circle back to this team before that we thought weren't going to circle back. Just how, especially on a short week, how he would have to me, for him to come back, he'd have to clear waivers and be out there until after the Chiefs game, and then sign him that way there. I have since wondered, Tank Dell went down for the Texans, with a bad injury. Why aren't the Texans being talked about as a team maybe to claim him?
That's fair. I just don't know why does anyone want Diontae Johnson right now? What has he shown this year that has made teams clamoring for him for their stretch run when the locker room has to come together? All he did was be pretty unhappy in Carolina and get traded for pennies, and then just refuse to play against Baltimore or for Baltimore against Philadelphia, and then exit stage right that way. So is Pittsburgh going to bring him in just to be mad? Like you said, what's going to be the role? And maybe if the system was the same, then okay, you could advocate, okay, he's going to catch on right away. You can just throw him right back in, not going to miss a beat. He is still a talented player. I've always thought Diontae a talented guy. But it's a new OC, it's a new receivers coach, it's a whole new offense late in the season. You claim him tomorrow, he comes in the building for Tuesday. He's not playing against the Chiefs. Like, what Pittsburgh just needs is George Pickens to get healthy. Once Pickens get healthy and play, and that could happen for the Christmas Day game Wednesday, we'll see. There's a chance, fingers crossed, all that good stuff. Once that happens, with Pickens back in fold, this offense has scored. They put up points. They were averaging 27, 28 points per game at their peak before Pickens got hurt. That's what Pittsburgh needs. They don't need Diontae Johnson back for this team to just be mad in the locker room and just have a potential issue there. They just need a healthy Pickens, and this offense can hit the reset button. That's really all Pittsburgh should be concerned.
Now, if you had lost 3 players in this game against the Ravens to injury or whatnot, I mean, we just talked how Calvin Austin's coming into his own right now. You're not going to want to.
He's not going to block. That's where Jefferson and Skowronek have value.
And unless you're going to tell me that all of a sudden they're going to start running a lot of 11 personnel or a lot of NT or something like that. I mean, people are clamoring that Mike Williams is still not playing enough snaps, and you're gonna add basically Diontae Johnson to take over the Scotty Miller snaps. That guy's not gonna he might be happy for one game for that, and then he's going to start pouting on the sideline again. How are you going to get a guy snaps like that and get him up to speed this late in the season, get the continuity with the quarterback? That's another thing too. It's not like he's coming back in here with, Pickett or Ben or anything like that, so
it's new everybody.
So it just doesn't add up right now.
To try to steelman my argument, what he does offer is he can separate, and Pittsburgh does not have enough receivers who can naturally win one-on-one. Pickens is not a nuanced route runner, but he can win one-on-one with his size, just overall, great talent. Austin is getting there. There really isn't anybody else that can do that. So Johnson can do that. I just don't think you're going to work him into the offense and trust him to go out there and play in a bunch of different packages and give him half the playbook. Definitely not for this Chiefs game. And so then we're talking about the Bengals game. So I just don't see the value. And I would be surprised too if Pittsburgh claimed. If they do, then we'll take it from there. I just don't know why any team would have interest in a guy that clearly is not interested in being a good teammate right now.
The only thing that gives me pause is that not right now.
Yeah, I think honestly I missed that whenever Tomlin said it, but I mean Tomlin's answer is always to never comment on any free agent. I think that was kind of just his comment there. But yeah, that's interesting to say not right now.
I overthink. I way overparse these things anyway. But
the good news is we'll find out by 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow who has claimed him. Now, the thing is, what if the Chargers claim him? Then we'll always wonder, did Pittsburgh submit a claim? Because they're going to be behind the Chargers in the waiver order. So,
well, we have seen in the past it get reported that teams after, but it would be interesting to I don't know if that would ever surface or not, but we have seen in the past that so-and-so team also put in a claim, but we're behind in the waiver order.
Yeah, it's uncommon, but Field Yates is usually the guy that does that, and it's typically for more notable type of players. And I think that'd be one where he would get he would figure that information out, but that's not information that is really privy in public knowledge. So fair point on that, Dave. Good point.
All right, anything else from Tomlin?
No, nothing else from Tomlin. Pretty none of a press conference. Just weird on a Sunday. Like inactives are getting released for like covering a Mike Tomlin press conference. Just a quick note: all the fines from the Eagles game, ton of those ones. End zone scrum, Darnell Washington, Calvin Austin fined, and some Eagles players were actually penalized for their ruckus in that one. Darius Slay throwing a punch, and rookie Quinyon Mitchell. Jalen Carter was fined for that head slap on Connor Hayward. Zach Bond was actually called for hip drop tackle, which I did not even catch that in real time. I thought James Pierre would get fined for hip drop on that tackle on A.J. Brown. He did not. And Ross McCorkle wrote today, the first in-game hip drop tackle penalty occurred today from former Steeler and now Carolina Panthers linebacker Jacoby Windman. First time that's ever been flagged in a game for hip drop tackle.
Congrats.
I don't know. What do you get for it? You get a lighter. Your reward is a lighter paycheck when you get fined.
Yep. So in other words, the league apologized, but they didn't apologize.
Right. The quiet apology with the fine. Yeah. It's not worth rehashing. But I just wanted the NFL to say, yeah, we missed it. He punched him. We missed it. There was a scrum. Washington is a mountain of a man. He was blocking Slay. We didn't see it. Our bad. I just wanted someone to say that and not make me feel like I was going crazy. But we couldn't even get that from the league.
Like that Adam Sandler clip. I'm sorry, you were right. I was wrong. So
what movie is that?
I don't even know.
That is like early stuff. Like
it's a bit older and all. I can't even remember which one it was from. Real quick, was that a face mask on Jaylen Warren?
I don't know. I mean, it's the Steelers fan in me says yes. He definitely grabbed the shoulder first. Did he kind of come up to his face mask after? I know Warren's head was turned back, but Warren didn't even seem like he thought it was a face mask. He didn't have a reaction like somebody grabbed his face mask. I don't know. It doesn't matter is my answer to that one, but you could argue it either way.
All right. What about the Broderick Jones false start?
Yeah, I didn't see a false start on that one, but that's kind of this is two different games, but kind of a ball don't lie because he false started against the Eagles and they definitely didn't call that. And it was a clear false start. So it all kind of worked out. How about,
you're no
about
fun.
That? I know. What did you think? It was no fault. It was not a false start, right?
I mean, I didn't think it was. I mean, I think he's just, he lifted his left foot because, he's, I think it was just a natural body movement of his, because he points, mm-hmm. I don't think the intention was to come off the snap. No, I don't. I think it was ticky-tack false start.
How about that Najee Davenport out there, Dave? Didn't realize Pittsburgh had brought him back from 2007.
Say what?
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about.
No.
Tom Brady? Tom Brady said Najee Davenport. He said Davenport. He said great run by Davenport.
I didn't even see that. I missed that.
Yeah, the booth was. I got a video out there on that. The broadcast, and that's the A team. That's Kevin Burkhardt and Brady was pretty rough. It was apparently Cory Trice's debut, which I didn't realize. Apparently had an interception before his debut, Dave. If you can believe that, and Najee Davenport was out there for the Steelers again.
And the thing is he even said he's a young, inexperienced player. I remember him saying that. I missed the whole Davenport thing. Oh, don't send me down Najee Davenport.
I'll send you the clip. Yeah, that, and those were the jokes that poor Davenport. The one thing he will always be remembered for is that closet incident. But yeah, the broadcast was not great. At one point, there was some other slip up. Did Burkhardt makes some sort of poor reference, some sort of incorrect reference? I forget, but that happened at some point in the game too. Not a great job there from the Fox 18.
And the Steelers are 0-2 with Tom Brady calling games on Fox.
Yeah, so all the more reason to not have these games on Fox. It was weird to have a Steelers Ravens game on Fox. It just felt
wrong.
Yeah, good word for it. Wrong. All right. Dave, any reader emails to close out today's show?
Yes, sir. Let's start with Clayton here. Writes in, is it possible that Coach Tomlin's notoriously hard practices are contributing to this reoccurring theme of late season collapses? It seems there is a continuing issue of late season injuries, players looking tired, depleted relative to our opponents, sloppy tackling, lack of speed, and it's causing us to limp into the playoffs. Brady mentioned during the podcast that Tomlin opted to have the offensive line take it easier this week, and it made me wonder if he's overworking the guys. I don't watch many games outside of the Steelers, but it seems like teams we play in December, January look like they are a gear ahead of us. Same in 2020 and last season. Would be curious to get your thoughts on this. Great shows this season and always enjoy listening. Clayton.
Oh, it was Kevin Burkhardt that said Pittsburgh was going to Kansas City on Christmas Day. And he did correct some of those things later. But anyway, I don't know what their practice workload is like in season. I'm not there. There are restrictions from the league in terms of how many padded practices you can have, and those taper off, I should say, late in the year. I don't think so. I think the only time that was a viable thought was in 2007, that first camp, which was brutal from all the players you talk about. Like, Tomlin had us worn down by year's end, and that changed when the players spoke with him for the next season. I mean, they always have tough training camps. They had one last year, and they won the final 3 games of the season. They went 7-7, and then won the final 3 with Rudolph leading them. So I don't see that necessarily like fade, happening consistently. I don't have any evidence to believe that's the case. Is my answer to your question, Clayton.
And Tomlin recently even said, the reason are they do what they do through training camp and have the tackling because they want to harden them early for when for when the CBA stipulations and the padded practices taper off towards the end. So look, I have been talking a lot since, specifically the Eagles game, how I was worried about the amount of plays that defense was on. They're worn down from being on the field and playing some physical teams, and this stretch being what this stretch is. And then you add on the stretch of AFC North ball on top of it and how physical. I mean, even this one started, they played during one of the outtakes. Saturday night's all right for a fight, It kind of felt like this was going to be another, chippier AFC North game and all like that. I'm not buying into harder practices contributing to maybe a reoccurring late collapse or anything like that.
And look at all the rest days these guys get early in the week. Like Cam Hayward barely practices. He's in the pool on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He gets a session in on Friday. And all the rest days that Roberts will get, Waddle will get some days off. Ogunjobi, Malu, the vets get rested. So no, I just don't see any evidence to believe that's the case or a contributing factor.
All right, let's get one from Jason Chadwell here. First of all, I want to wish both of you a Merry Christmas, Healthy New Year. Certainly appears Pittsburgh is headed to a one and done in the playoffs. Secondary and wide receiver depth was razor thin all season, and it's finally showing its ugly head. A couple of things. It always seems like Pittsburgh has to travel to Baltimore in December. When is the last time Pittsburgh got to host the second meeting in Pittsburgh during season? Not that it would have changed the outcome, but shouldn't Marlon Humphrey been flagged for taunting on his interception return? Lastly, I don't think Pittsburgh will win another game this season. Which side of the ball are you more concerned with coming down the stretch? You've got a bunch of them in there. When was the last time
I'm
Pittsburgh?
efforting. I find that information. It's probably been a little bit. They played there last year. They were the away team. I'm just trying to see here, trying to go through 2020. It looks like I want to say, yeah, it looks like 2020. They were at home. They were away week 8 and then home in week 12 and won both those games. And one of those was the crazy COVID game. Was one of those. I think the week 8 game. Like I played on a Wednesday or something, I think. So yeah, 2020 was the last time Pittsburgh hosted the second game.
And yes, Marlon Humphrey should have been flagged for taunting. He'll get fined for that, I'm sure, right?
He should. Clear taunt to me. So I don't think his defense is gonna hold up.
Which side of the ball are you more concerned about coming down the stretch?
I'm gonna give the Dave yes answer. I know that's where you're going with this one.
Defense in the moment right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think specifically red zone, Alex. I think you make good points there. Looking back at this thing, man, if they could keep the ball out of the end zone on a couple of these drives, keep the score down a little bit, and until they get these bodies healthy and we get to see what this defense is with the healthy bodies. I'm a little bit more concerned about the defense right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair because it's still supposed to be the strength of this team, and it's clearly not. This offense was always hoped and expected and has shown signs of being much better, but the Steelers still run through their defense, and they're not looking like that right now. And again, the injuries play a factor, but they got beat up in the trenches, and that's not really injury related for the guys that did not play in this game. So yeah, I probably would lean defense as well. And I just think once Pickens gets back offensively, it's going to open up a lot for the Steelers. And Tomlin kind of said that even himself today. Can I just say one other thing? I want to write an article about this. It's actually scheduled. It'll go up by the time probably people listen to the podcast. So give it a read. Obviously, these last 2 games have sucked, and Pittsburgh has not played well, and that is concerning when you're struggling as much as Pittsburgh's struggling against these contending teams in the AFC, NFC, and the Chiefs game. We'll see how that one goes. But I had said this a couple weeks ago, and I should have talked about it more, but I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer when Steelers are winning and things are good and Pittsburgh's on top of the AFC North. I said, keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing and really what defines Pittsburgh's success or failure is just what happens in the postseason. Because of this playoff drought, they've lost their last 5 games, not won a playoff game since 2016. All that matters is winning a playoff game. That is like my ultimate measuring stick of success in a season for Pittsburgh right now. Hopefully more than one, but that's the starting point. And even if you had beaten the Eagles and the Ravens and Pittsburgh was awesome right now and they're the favorites and you get one and done in the playoffs, then the season is a wash and it's same old Steelers. If Pittsburgh, I know things don't look good right now, but if they can just win a playoff game, win on wildcard weekend, then none of this matters right now. Losing to the Eagles doesn't matter. Losing to the Ravens doesn't matter. If you can win a playoff game, you can finally break that drought. That is still the measure of success. I know the team is not playing like a team that can win in the postseason right now, but get healthier and just have a good game on wildcard weekend. And that changes the tide and tone of this entire season. They're not defined by regular season. They punch their ticket to the playoffs. They're in the postseason. All that matters now is winning a playoff game.
All right. That's not going to have me running through any wall. Tomlin.
Yeah, not going to be my Hard Knocks special, I'm sure, but there you go. Also, Hard Knocks is going to suck on Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's how we're spending Christmas Eve, just watching Hard Knocks of the Steelers get beat. So, bah humbug to that.
All right, one more from Cosmo Moore. Hey, Dave and hey, Alex and Uncle Dave.
Okay. Some news for Alex over here, apparently.
Happy holidays to the whole Steelers Depot crew. I'm spoiling the living mess out of I guess you call them, they're really my wife's cousins or second cousins. In other words, they're kids of my wife's cousin who's like her sister. And basically we treat these 2 kids like they're like our niece and nephew, I guess. Mm-hmm. Spoiling the crap out of them.
What are you doing?
I just sending them they live in Portland and just out of the blue in like September or I think it was September, bought them a PS5 and like 15 games and The boys, like 7, is a 49ers fan, sent him a uh, George Kittle's his favorite player, sent him a Kittle jersey, and
Nice.
just enjoying spoiling the living, and just ordered up more stuff. I don't know how I got on, because I'm kind of like Uncle Dave to everybody, so I just thought I'd throw that in.
You want to be adopted and become an uncle or a niece or nephew to the Dave household? You can apply.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And I love kids that are not mine too. So.
Yeah, you give them back.
Let's see. Can you guys explain the team's infatuation with the toss? I know we've had success a couple of times with it this season, but it sure seems like we routinely. Am I giving too much information away? I mean, we try to color this thing with personal life.
We're 2 hours in.
Yeah. Most people have probably already clicked off anyway.
That's true.
Let's see. I know we've had a couple of success a couple of times with the season, but it sure seems like we routinely have better success on inside zone plays where the running back has the cutback opportunity. Under center toss is one thing, but I really dislike the shotgun toss. Just wondering if you've seen in the All-22 why they think it's a good call at this point of the season. He adds in here, Dan Kreider for the Steelers Ring of Honor for 2025.
I like it. A little fullback love.
Yeah.
Get a little bus driver, a little Tim Lester in there, John Whitman. I got a video. I did a video a couple years ago on Dan Kreider, so you want to go check that out. He's a PA. Was he Mannheim? I think it's where he went, Central PA, wherever Mannheim is. Yeah, we've kind of reached a little bit of jet sweep levels with the toss play. I don't know the success rate. I know it's certainly not always worked, and the Eagles game was overkill for sure. Some of the toss game is almost like a glorified inside zone where it's a short toss and it's kind of designed to bring the ball back, kind of like a zone play. So not all tosses or crack tosses are created equally. There have been games, and we said in the Eagles game, you had to get the ball in the perimeter, and toss is one way to do that. So yeah, I think it's been a little over hated by Steelers fans, but I haven't dug into the numbers in terms of what's been successful and what hasn't been. So I dislike it less than most fans do.
Yeah, I dislike. I'm with you there. Does it seem like it gets all the talk's coming out now because of the the last couple of games? I think more than anything is where this thing has surfaced here. Here's the overarching thing when it comes to the running game. It's hard for this team right now to find success, continued success, like they had early on in the season where they were kind of running more at will. They're trying to be the Eagles, and they're not the Eagles yet. They just not having continuity in a run game. They're not getting the explosive runs. Even the 10-yard runs, they're not getting enough of those where they can just lean on it. They want to be a heavy personnel team that can kind of run at will, and they're just not able to do that enough. And it's impacted their first down stuff. Once again, I thought they were better on first down in this game against the Ravens, but as a whole this year, they entered last 32nd in the league. In fact, that was my first key. First things first, about how they ranked last in the NFL in yards per play on 1st and 10 plays, and the Ravens were first in the NFL entering this game. So one of the things that we need to look at beyond just boiling this thing down to just a toss play in these final 2 games and on into the playoffs is this team has got to be better on first down no matter how they do it. Run, pass, whatever. That should be the focus to me more than a specific toss play.
And it's not like they're crushing it with inside zone or any concepts right now. Nothing is really working. The toss is just more visible because it's easier to identify a toss play than it might be inside zone, or was that duo or was that inside zone? It's harder to tell for any of us on the TV tape watching it live. So again, I understand it's probably been overdone a little bit. I'm surprised they've not run more outside zone this year. I don't know if they're just trying to play the strengths of the back or whatever they're comfortable with. My biggest concern, like you said, Dave, is this run game is not ascending. It's really plateauing and kind of descending in a lot of respects. And the thing you could say about this run game in 2022 and 2023 was it got better, and it was pretty good down the stretch of both those seasons and really kind of helped them in that final 4 games. Remember that Seahawks game last year where they just ran the ball like crazy? Not seeing that this year. And that's a concerning thing when you have a healthy backfield now. The O-line, knock on wood, has been healthy and you've had continuity there. Those are signs that tell you this run game should be getting better, and it's really going backwards, which is hard to figure out.
All right, let's wrap it up from here. Have you watched Die Hard yet? Your Christmas movie that's not a Christmas movie?
I wish I had time. The stupid schedule is probably not gonna allow me. It is a Christmas movie, though. We can definitely all agree upon that, I'm sure. But hopefully, I'll get to watch a little Nakatomi Plaza here in a little bit.
All right, we will be back. What day is it? We will be back Tuesday.
Yeah, I think our plan is, because we can't do a Wednesday show because the game is Wednesday. We want to get through some tape, so we won't be back Monday. So we're going to do a Tuesday morning show, and then that'll probably be the last thing we do before the game against the Chiefs. That'll kind of be our Friday show, preview the game, make our picks, all that fun stuff, and then we'll come back. I don't know when, probably Thursday, and obviously recap the Christmas Day game.
All right, we are wrapping this up right now, a couple of minutes before 10 o'clock Eastern. We're going to try to turn this around for if you're up late on a Sunday night on into Monday morning. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter. Sorry it went so long, but it had a lot to talk to and good time late at night to go ahead and get a bunch of thoughts in before having to get into Chiefs week here. And also, apologies if this ran extra long. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit that donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Until Tuesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.